I'll call the order. Sorry. I'll call the order of the meeting of the Clinton Board of Selectmen for Wednesday, March 16th, 2022. First order of business is public comment. Any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to review of minutes. We have we have regular session for February 16th and executive session / collective bargaining prep for February 16th. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes for the February 16th and the executive session for February 16th, 2022.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0. We are on to discussion about sidewalks from downtown. Our DPW Superintendent, Chris McGowan, is here. Thanks for coming, Chris.
No problem.
I mean, it's a poorly kept secret. There's been some issues with, I guess it's called spalling, which is the new word I've used, learned with concrete. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. So what's happening is it's mostly in the first sections that were poured, the concrete. So basically from DeVarney's down to Santander, up to the top of the hill at the Corcoran House, and then cross the street down in front of the library and down to the Savings Bank. There is some other minor spalling on the remainder of the project, much less than in that first section. So what happened was there were two concrete contractors. The first subcontractor did that entire first stretch of the concrete work, and then the general contractor got rid of them, brought in another contractor. So most of the problem seems to be where this first subcontractor came in. So, I mean, we've been aware of the problem for a while. I talked to the contractor. I called them up last week and told them about the problem. You know, told him, come on out, we'll take a walk around, take a look at it. He was off this week, he's not around this week, and he's gonna come back, and when he comes back on Monday, he's gonna give me a ring, and we're gonna walk the site and get some ideas, get, you know, the extent of it. I did walk the entire site, and like I said, it's much more pronounced in that first section. But just a little history on top of this, it gets a little bit more complicated, is this project was the entire project was done under a Mass DOT specification. There is a bit of a battle going on between the contractors and the Mass Highway about their mixed design for their concrete. And what Mass Highway's mixed design has compared to what other mixed designs, most other mixed designs are almost all Portland cement they use, a type of cement that's used in concrete, been using it for a long time. The Mass Highway mix uses Portland cement and also what's called slag cement. So slag cement is a hydraulic cement. I don't know if any of you have ever used a hydraulic cement, but it sets up lightning fast and it's very difficult to work with. So contractors aren't happy with the mixed design that Mass Highway is going with. So if you look at most of the other concrete jobs we've done in town, we haven't had this issue anywhere.
Right.
Except one other project. And the other project is the other end of High Street, which is also a Mass Highway project. Actually, there was Mass Highway supervised, and same design mix, same issue down that end of the sidewalk. So that's going to be it. The contractor was not saying, you know, didn't mention that. He was going to come out, take a look, and come up with a solution. So until we talk to him and come up with a solution, or he says it's not our problem, it's a concrete problem, then, you know, we'll move on to whatever we need to then. Mass Highway's adamant that it's not a problem, but all the contractors and, you know, if you look at it, the only good thing we have is most of the area is where that first contractor worked. So I think there is definitely a workmanship issue in that first area, the concrete. So and they use this slag concrete because it's much more waterproof, so water doesn't penetrate down, so it'll last longer, and it gives it a much harder finish, but it's difficult to work with. So.
Can I just,
yes.
What does spalling mean?
Spall means if you go down anywhere on that stretch, or even out by the library here and go out down there, and you'll see like the top surface, literally an eighth to not even a quarter of an inch thick, is just like coming off of the top of the concrete surface. If you sweep it off, it'll look like rough concrete is basically what it looks like. I think from what I'm thinking will happen is this year will be by far the worst because it's the first winter it's gone through, and I don't think it'll be an ongoing long-term problem, but that's just my speculation right now. So until I meet with the contractor, I'll meet with him next week. We'll come up with a game plan, and he said, you know, we have some ideas, and so he was not walking away from it whatsoever. But just so you know, we have a little bit of retainage left that we're holding. The way these contracts work is you hold 5% retainage up to the point where there's substantial completion. So substantial completion on this project was last summer, and what ends up happening at that point is you come up with a punch list, you monetize the punch list, and so every single item on the punch list, you put a dollar amount next to it. As they complete work, you pay them the money for that work that's been completed. So right now, almost everything has been completed that was on that punch list, except stuff that they couldn't do till this spring. So there's not a whole lot of money there, but they're not walking away. And we do have a 1-year warranty, so there's other avenues regardless. So they're a good contractor. I think they'll stand by their work. But until I meet with them next week, I can't tell you for certain what's going to happen.
Mr. Chair, I'm just curious, Chris, is there any sort of like a surface treatment that you can do or you just have to start over?
I actually looked online today and I saw a guy repair it.
Okay.
There are surface treatments as an absolute yes.
Okay.
My question is how long is that surface treatment going to last? I'm a little nervous about that, and that might be what he proposes to do, and I think I would maybe let him do a test pad to see what it looks like too, because we don't want it to look out of place compared to the rest of the concrete, and then maybe have him sign something, say he's going to do this, and he'll stand by it for a year, and if it doesn't work, he'll come back, or something to that effect. But there are surface treatments.
Okay. And the other thing is, I'm by no means a civil engineer, but people that are in the business, just when I talked about spalling, they mentioned sometimes it can happen if after the concrete is laid, they don't put like some sort of a covering or like a burlap sack or something over it to help it retain moisture.
Yeah, because the longer you cure, if it cures more slowly, then that's better. You know, anytime you can cure concrete slowly, and adding a tarp or even keeping it wet is generally, they were curing compounds, which is compounds that you add to the mix that actually, without that burlap or that stuff, it actually lengthens out the time that it will cure.
Okay.
The one thing about it where I don't necessarily think that was the problem is this is all in the first areas of work, which they did those early spring, when they mobilized the job.
Yep.
And then the stuff they did in the dead of summer is in pretty good shape. So I don't think it's really a curing problem. I think it's a combination of the contractor was maybe a B or a C grade contractor, subcontractor compared to the next guy that came in, and I think this slag it's just difficult to work with. Even the contractor on the north end, I know them well. They do a lot of mass highway work, and they were complaining about it and saying this is pretty common. And I've seen it in other places. I saw it down in downtown Hudson. I was actually in Newport last week, and I saw a bunch of areas. Now I'm looking, of course, everywhere.
I see it everywhere. All right, thank you, Mr.
But it
Chair.
is an issue, and I can give an update in a couple of weeks and
Thank you.
see where we're at.
Okay.
So as far as the workmanship that out here, like you had mentioned, so that seems to be its own issue, correct, right? So
I think the first section is much, there are spalled spots, but they're much more minor in scope than the kind of big, large areas and panel after panel. If you walk all the way down, you'll see like a panel with the little spall, and a lot of it is right on the edge, so the salt could have had a little bit to do with that. Up here, it's everywhere, and if you walk down, you'll see a panel here and there. Maybe 1 out of 10 panels has a little bit of spalling, and it's minor, but up here, it's major.
So when you meet with the contractor, there seems that we would be addressing an issue with the workmanship and possibly the mixture of the concrete versus the other areas?
My plan is to have him come out here and look at it and offer me some kind of a solution, as far as I'm concerned right now, until he comes back with anything different. he owns it. And then if he comes back with some other reason why he doesn't, then that's when we'd have to have that discussion, but.
Did the contractor mention anything about any concerns with the mixture prior?
The concrete supplier did mention it to me. The engineer was adamant that this was the correct mix to use. The design engineer, he was adamant that we use this mix. So we went with the engineer, and
And now does the town hire the engineer?
yeah.
Now, is there any recourse through the engineer?
I think it would be very difficult because we're using the Mass Highway, Mass DOT mix. So I don't think that the engineer specking out, which Mass Highway is, they do the most expensive projects you do, and they're high dollar projects, and they don't cut any corners. So I think he would look back and just say, hey, we spec'd out Mass Highway mix. What do you want us to do? And then his argument would be it's a workmanship issue, so.
And lastly, is there any potential for recourse through insurance if we were unable to, rectify it with the contractor? Is
I
there?
don't know. I don't know if insurance would. I tend to say no, but I'm not really sure. I'm not really a lawyer. Bob's a lawyer, but it's kind of contract laws and insurance law. I think it's within a 1 year workmanship, so I think it would, the insurance company probably wouldn't pay for it. They'd tell the contractor, you gotta pay for it, so. And it's a matter of whether he, they're good people, they're good people, when they do work, they wanna get paid for it. If there's a small change, they wanna get paid for it. Some contractors, you back and forth, and, I'll give you that, you give me this, guy just wants to get paid for everything he does, and this, he's also someone, he'll stand by his work. He doesn't want it to be a bad job, for sure, so.
And did you run into this with, say, the Water Street project?
No.
Nothing?
And Water Street was Mass Highway, but it was quite some time ago, and I'm not sure if it's the same
Same
mix
spec,
design.
yeah.
But Berlin Street, we did all of Berlin Street, that was not a Mass Highway design, it was just 4,000-pound concrete. The Water Street down the other end in front of Prescott Mills, no problems. Greeley Street, no problems. And again, when I say no problems, you got concrete spalls,
Yeah.
concrete cracks, There's
Yeah.
two kinds of concrete that's cracked and concrete that's going to crack. So that's what,
Well,
so
it's
seeing
certainly
cracks-
disappointing to hear that, the project was such a success that, this is definitely, it's disappointing to
is.
hear that this has popped up, to know.
Sure is, yeah, and agreed. There's no question. It's a bit disheartening, but let's resolve it. That's the key.
Okay.
If they come back and do say that it's, the reason is the mixture that was spec'd out by the state, do we have any recourse with the state, or we just, or
No.
they just tell us, nope?
It wouldn't be a recourse with the state. It would be, you still have to, you have to go through the contract, and you got to go through the contractor. So at that point, we'd have to write a letter saying why we think it's his problem, and he'd probably write a letter back saying it's why it's not. But I think we just wait and see what he says.
Sure,
When he comes
okay,
in,
yep.
because, like I said, these guys are a good contractor. He's proud of his work when he does it. He does a good job, and he expects to get a good recommendation on the next job. So
Yeah,
he's,
and I don't think, I wasn't meaning have the state come down on them. I was saying, can we argue with the state and say this
did
is,
it, yeah.
this is the spec you told our guys to use,
Yeah.
and they're claiming that that's why the sidewalks are.
Yeah, completely town job, town paid for, yeah, so they're, you could try, but.
All right.
I just have,
Please.
about the warranty, you said there's one, is that from the spring? I mean, now that we've brought it to their attention, I
It'd
imagine
be
it's
from
like,
substantial completion, which was,
Okay,
I don't know, Phil, do you
summer.
remember when substantial completion was?
Oh, gosh, I know it's probably July.
July or in that range, so we got, yeah, it's well within the warranty, and they're
Okay.
notified, and again, I mean, we can get it in writing eventually if we need to, but he's not the type to say, you've never told me that. He's not that type of a guy. He's a stand-up guy, so.
and is it?
If need be, before that period's up, he'll get a letter, so.
And is the resolution, I mean, is the proposed solution based on what we feel is the workmanship, will he come back and say well, I've now made a short-term solution? Or,
Well, that's why
this
I would like to, if he's got a solution that isn't take the concrete out and replace it, I mean, I want to see where he's done this before and how long ago, and,
Yeah.
and, even if he hasn't done it on his projects, I'm sure the contractor he would bring in, because he wouldn't do this with his own people. They got to have jobs where, at least several years old, where we could go take a look and see if it held up. So.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, we'll keep
We'll
in touch.
regroup.
Thank you. Moving on, as most know, the Strand Theater closed this past December, January. Selectman DeVault's been working with some members of the community and the landlord to try and get someone in there, and he wants to give us an update on what's going on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we are, we're in the process of either trying to craft a letter to go to the item to kind of explain this, but I thought it was a good opportunity to just talk about it here. So obviously the Strand closing, devastating. It just was bad, just kind of a punch in the gut right towards the end of COVID. So what we wanted to do is try to, as quickly as possible, form a committee that would have some town resources and work with the current building owner and the current business owner to try to facilitate the transition to a new ownership group. And so what we did is we formed a committee, and the committee is formed of 2 previous Strand owners. So we do have some intellectual know-how on the board. We have our Director of Economic Development. We have, me and Julie have been on the committee. We've met about 3 or 4 times so far. So there's some select board members. Then there's some community members, and we're still, if anyone is interested in helping out, we can always find a spot for someone to help out with this board. So the charter of this board to start is, 1, to first see what we can do to help with any sort of renovations on the Strand and see what type of public funding, whether it's COVID assistance or some other type of public funding, take a look at any renovations that we think might be covered that we can assist with those renovations. We've already received the application from the business owner to redo or to fix structurally the marquee sign that's in front of the Strand. So I can catch up with Phil later to find out where that's at. But I know that the application was made. It's kind of, if you guys remember the facade program that we were doing, it's kind of like an offshoot of that. It's definitely like a bigger, higher ticket item facade update. But Phil, our Director of Economic Development, feels pretty strongly that it should qualify for some funding. So we're already starting to do some things to get the Strand up and running again. One of the other things this committee has been doing is meeting with potential ownership groups, just so that they can have a better idea of the support network that's there and just get a better understanding. The way it's been going is we've kind of been meeting as a committee, and then if there's still interest, then the owner and the building owner will then meet with that potential owner, and they'll have more of an in-depth, like, financial discussion that'll be just between them. But for the first meeting, we usually just like to invite them in just to show them that there is a level of support, because the Strand is a business like any other business, but it is kind of the center point of High Street, and I do believe it's a foot traffic generator, and I do believe that the Strand, if the Strand is doing well, I think it only helps the other businesses that are around the Strand to doing well. So that's why I feel it's kind of important, because the last thing we want is we just dumped $4.5 million into the downtown. You don't want to have a boarded up movie theater in the middle of your downtown. So that's kind of the motivation to why we're doing what we're doing. So we have been meeting with some owners, and if anything else too, because some of the people that are interested, some of them have never ran a movie theater. So that's why I think I'm excited that we have 2 past Strand owners on the committee, because another purpose of this committee is going to be some level of support for new owners when they're starting up. So for like the first 6 months or so, just to have a phone call or someone that you can talk to about if you have questions about ordering movies or the digital projector. I mean, we just really have between the 2 past owners, we have a lot of intellectual know-how how to run it. And then the very last thing, it's probably the most controversial, but like I'm just kind of throwing it out there for a discussion, and then we'll see where it takes us. But we've been just talking about the possibility that if there is a long gap between ownership groups, could the town play a role, maybe through Parks and Rec, to temporarily manage the theater just for a number of months until a new owner comes around, at least you'll be able to keep the theater open, active, and I think it would, ultimately, it would help to sell it, because I think it'd be an easier sell to an ownership group if they can come and see the theater in action versus if they come to see the theater, 6 months from now when it's been closed for a long period of time. So that's I just wanted to, thank you, Mr. Chair, for putting this on the agenda. I just wanted to share that with the group and just let everyone know that we're doing as much as we can to help the building owner and to help the current owner who's looking to sell as of right now, just to do whatever we can to try to get the Strand back up and going again. Because if anyone that's around my age knows, the Strand closed once in, I think it was like 86 or 87, and it didn't open up until like 94, and it was like a real bummer. So I think nobody wants it to be closed for a long period of time, and I don't think that it is, because I think it has the potential to be a really interesting business, because some of the renovations we're looking at too is to try to make the Strand more of a multi-use. So at its core, it's always going to be a movie theater, but with some simple renovations like some additional stage lighting, you could have it, or maybe make the stage a little bit bigger. You could have it be more of a venue for live bands. I know that I think the Simple Man Saloon, they have acts down there all the time, and I know that they've been made mention of the fact that they have one of the smaller venues, and they could fill the Strand up easily with live acts. And you have comedians, and you could have plays. So we do kind of think from the committee, talking to some potential owners, that there is the potential for like a more of a multi-use of the space. Again, it would be at its core a movie theater, but you could still do a lot of other acts there too, and have a lot of movie-themed events there. So, yeah, hopefully with the help of this committee, we can get the Strand up and running again in a short period of time. But that's where we're at on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I had one question. We had approved funding for a feasibility study
Yes.
for that multi-use space, because I think that's a great idea.
Yes.
Is there any progress there or update?
I'll ask Phil what the update is on that, but yes, I failed to mention that. Thank you. Yeah, there is. So one of the other things we're doing to help new owners is getting a feasibility study of the space, and it's a consultant that they're going to come in, look at the space, look at some comps in some other areas of the state or the country, and basically just give a report to a potential owner that says, here are some of the business plans that we think would be successful if you were running this space. And I think that would be a tremendous tool to a first-time business owner of that spot. So yes, thank you for reminding me of that.
Questions from the board?
No, I just want to reiterate, I think the consensus of the group is that, we've thrown around different ideas in Parks and Rec. I mean, I think the group feels that private ownership of this business is definitely the way to go, and we're kind of moving in that direction. And we're trying to explore different ways the space could be utilized in the hopes that this private ownership can take that and show our support for business owners in Clinton. So just wanted to add that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's a great effort. We've spoken informally about this, and I'm totally in favor of doing everything we can to get private ownership in there. What I would suggest as a middle option before we consider the town taking it over, just because I'm not sure, I have reservations about the town taking over any private business. What I think might be an idea that maybe isn't getting enough credit, that some people have mentioned to me in the community, I want to give them full credit, is maybe if we can't get that private ownership, I think, and maybe the feasibility study can help with this, I think there are models out there for a nonprofit to be established, because I think the real future of that space, without getting into, I don't run movie theaters, but I know we watched Spider-Man at home last night for $20. So the COVID obviously changed things, but the distribution model for movies is changing. It's still a gem. It's a gorgeous space, and we still are looking forward to going back there for affordable prices to have a meal with our kids and some popcorn and a couple beers. And to maximize that, we've seen, I've shared some things with you and Phil, other spaces that take advantage of it without relying 100% on films. So I'm looking forward to the feasibility study, because I think we can be creative with that space whether it's someone taking it over or the community taking it over. I was at the paper when it was empty, and that was every story, every week we were doing a story like, when are we going to fill the Strand? And that's the key to bringing downtown back, was filling the Strand. And I think that's still the case. So thank you for your work. I look forward to hearing what's up with the feasibility study, and if we can do anything here to support what you guys are doing, please keep us posted.
Thank you.
Next, the Clinton Middle School Social Studies Department is requesting use of the Town Hall Foundatorium for their 8th grade mock town meeting in early June. We have, go ahead.
Well, no, you go. I was just going to say that I think that would be the town hall use.
Yes.
Subcommittee can.
So we're looking to have a town hall use committee just because with things opening up a little more, we've been getting some requests. So I think the Board of Health is eager to meet with the town hall use committee or a representative of our board, as we've done in the past when deciding these things. I appreciate them not going so unilateral as in some communities, but looking for some feedback. So is this something that they need approval tonight, or?
Well, I don't think this does. It's an annual event that we have been doing for a number of years, which was great for the students to come down and learn a little bit about town government. Haven't done it for 2 years because of COVID. So they just kind of wanted to get back on track again. So I don't think it needed an approval tonight, but I think, as the chair indicated, there are other groups that are asking to use the hall. And the Board of Health, before they just want to open up, they would like to kind of get everyone on the same page, the Town Hall Use Committee, the Selectmen, Board of Health, and determine what use do we want to allow, how much, how many, any protocol should be in place, or just wide open to do anything, all those type of questions. So if there's an ability, because there's another request from the prom, after prom committee parents, looking for a venue to do a large fundraiser for their event as well, too, and they've asked about it. So I think the mock town meeting's not till June, but I think this other event would be earlier. So I think within the next week or so, to try to get that meeting, I think would be helpful, so that we could give direction. Joyce has been getting a lot of calls, not a lot, but we had a handful of calls lately, now that things have opened up, about using the building. So we just want to be able to have a protocol to be able to answer these inquiries. And if it's no, it's no, but we just want to be able to know what to tell people. So.
Okay.
I'll schedule that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keep me posted, go ahead.
So right now, are there any restrictions whether at the state level or federal level about group sizes or anything to that nature, or things have pretty much opened up, business as
Yeah, I don't think there's
correct?
anything on the state level, but there are still some local restrictions that are being put on, and right now, we don't specifically have any, but I think, being a public space, the Board of Health just wanted to have that discussion, that's all. So before, because obviously there's a lot of both sides of the issue, so the Board of Health chair just said, he didn't unilaterally want to make that decision without getting input from all the other affected boards to make sure that however we do open, it's done with everybody's support, that's all. So.
Yeah, I don't see, I have no problem with the thing. I mean, it's a busy week with the election and town meeting and then the election. So we can make it work, but yeah, I'd love to sit down with the Board of Health or Town Hall Use Committee, just as, to make sure we're all on the same page. This is how we've been doing it for 2 years. So, if, we can get that scheduled in the next, before our next meeting, and then we can, it's a soft yes. We'll just figure out.
Right.
I
Yeah,
think
I'm
we can
assuming,
assure this.
Waiting until the next meeting isn't gonna, the next selectmen's meeting is, would that, if we, I don't see any reason why we're not gonna approve it, but I agree, I think it would be premature to approve it until we sit down with the Board of Health and just say that we're open up again.
Right.
Yeah, I would give the class the indication that we're, as much as we can predict the future, that we're on board with this. We just want to.
Yeah. No, it's a great event, so it is.
No, I think it's terrific.
It is something to try to work toward. Yep.
Yep, for sure.
We should do one for adults, too. All right. Moving on, thank you, John.
We can do it at the Strand.
Right, there we go. There's no administrative business this week, so we'll move on to old and new business. We thank you for meeting without me last week. With the Finance Committee, we're going to continue our joint budget hearings on Tuesday, March 22nd at 6 p.m., if everybody's okay with that.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to make a suggestion. See, most of the members, they work full-time. Would it be easier if we met on like a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock? Just a suggestion.
Well, let's check with the, I think we had a question for the Finance Committee anyway, so.
It would make it easier for you guys.
Sure.
That last time worked fine for me. So
Okay.
I'm flexible.
Yeah, I'm usually home, but it was an odd thing for me. So let's take a look. I appreciate the flexibility, but if that changes, we'll let you guys know 2 days ahead of time. Speaking of which, the annual town meeting is coming up the first Monday in June. Generally, at this time of year, we start setting a schedule as far as when we're accepting articles, whether town or citizen-sponsored. Michael, what's the protocol for that usually?
Generally, the board usually gives a month, so being as there's 5 Wednesdays in April, I just kind of wanted to get out early at this meeting. So if you wanted to open up until your second meeting in April, that should give plenty of time for either the public or departments to get warrant articles in, so that those monetary requests can be considered as part of the overall budget number once it gets finalized, so.
Okay. And just so everybody's clear, what do we
Yeah.
have to post 45 days? Is that, when do we have to post by, just so people understand why we're doing this so far out? We have to,
No, it's just a matter of just for us to get the information so that we can
Okay.
finalize the budget. So the warrant only gets published a week prior to town meeting, so.
My apologies.
So, yeah, so it's just really kind of administrative deadline, just to know what we're working with, so.
okay. Yep. Matt?
Mr. Chair, actually, I had a question on fiscal year 2023 budget.
Yep.
So I know that we had spoke about the warrant article audit, and there was going to be information that was going to be included with the submitted budgets, I believe, or I just wanted to confirm when that was, because I know the last, when we had just met, I didn't see anything in there, and so I didn't know if that's coming down the road or if that should have
We'll
been there.
definitely get that information for you. I did speak, I know DPW has some, and I did speak with DPW, so he was getting that information together, so, yeah. So we'll definitely have that if we could try to have it for next week's budget meeting.
Yeah, that'd be awesome,
So,
thank
yeah.
you.
Okay. So I'll accept the motion to set deadline for article request for April 20th, I believe.
Mr. Chair, April 20th, that'll be the second meeting.
It's-
Chairman, I'll make a
it's-
motion that we advertise it, our second meeting, April 20th for a deadline.
Second. Motion made and second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5? Is that 5? Yep. Thank you. Apologies. Mr. Duffy's here to update us on the
Consultant.
Armory Consultant. Thank you.
Chairman,
Thank you.
these are the new mics?
Yes.
How about that?
Let's see.
I had a couple conversations with the consultant who had prepared the prior proposal for us back in December of 2020. He feels that he can get us something, a deliverable in the early part of June, which is not sufficient if we want to do something at town meeting, but should be sufficient if we want to initiate a conversation with DCAM or make a decision, help your board make a decision ideally by June 30th. The initial proposal was for $29,500. He's still finalizing and getting feedback from his consultants, his subcontractors, the environmental, structural engineers, those kinds of people. He thinks it'll be something more like $35,000 to $39,000. Hasn't got it nailed down yet, but I said I would bring that forward, so that's where we stand now. So probably beginning in about 4 weeks and giving us a product in the first part of June.
Right.
So if I'm understanding correctly, that the feasibility study would be completed for early June,
Yes,
and our extension is until,
June 30th.
Yeah, June 30th.
July 1st, before the break.
End of the fiscal year, so June 30th. So, yeah, we wouldn't be able to put anything on town meeting, but we could tell the state that we're interested and set up a special town meeting or whenever they...
Exactly, and we can work with the state, Mr. Chairman, and let them know that we're going down this path. I think they just wanted to see that something was being done. So they think they just wanted a decision one way or the other this year. So I think we asked for a year, they gave us half, to kind of keep our feet to the fire. So if there is a serious commitment, that it needs to be another month or 2 months, I think they would work with us on that. So, but we'll talk with them beforehand to make sure that they're okay with that, so.
Yeah, we won't spend the money if the state's going to say we need a decision.
Well, that's exactly what I was gonna ask, if we could proactively reach out to get that, even if we can get an extension based upon, the initiation of the feasibility study.
Actually, this is actually facilities assessment rather than a feasibility study. So
Okay,
we're
sorry.
We're understanding what the condition of the building is and some conjectural costs associated with addressing the specific condition of the building.
Exactly, perfect.
And I think that then gives the board the opportunity to know whether they feel it's worth pursuing. If it's a reasonable repair or maintenance type cost, so.
Excellent.
Good? Yep. Okay. So, yeah, let us know how much it is, and we'll...
Sure, and simultaneously, Mike will reach out to DCAM and see if if June 30th is a drop dead, or if there's still room to communicate after June 30th.
Right. So, so you'll come back and we'll approve this? Or
Yeah.
do you want, okay, great, okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
that should be, we got
Or-
a meeting in 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Well,
Well-
when do you need? I mean, do you want to approve it up to $40,000?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Should we just
Okay.
approve it to a certain amount?
Yeah.
And then if.
I'll
okay.
accept the motion to approve pending the town administrator's discussion with the state to make sure this is, we're not going to get caught with our pants down. I'll accept the motion to
So
approve up
moved.
to $40,000 for a facilities assessment.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we,
I'm going to give it to Matt, he went first. You get the second, though. Motion made, second. I'm just trying to spread the wealth. Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor? Aye. Opposed,
Thank you.
5-0. Thank you. Interim SEMA Director Sean Kerrigan would like to discuss a repair or replacement of the digital message board. We were contacted by the senior center about using the message board, which I think is down by the fire station, to advertise an event, and one of my deputies informed me that the battery is dead. So he wanted me to check our budget to see if, since the batteries are not cheap, this has been something that's been on my long-term list in an effort to, I drive through Berlin now, and they have a nice sign there. So that stares at me every morning
Yeah.
about what's going on. So part of me, I just wanted to float it out in front of the board. I think Michael and I had spoken informally about this, that ARPA might cover public communications, things like this, for an event of a health emergency or something like that. If we wanted to start thinking, in addition to, I'll check our budget, see if we can fix that one, but if there were, I wouldn't mind either, if we want to go with the temporary ones, maybe a couple more. I don't know what these things go for, or maybe, exploring. We don't necessarily have, a central crossroads like in West Boylston, where it's a permanent thing, as like at Parks and Rec, but I wanted to put it before the board to start thinking about if we're up to exploring, looking, actually, not only getting, using the one we have, but maybe getting one or two more, and thinking, are there spots that we could use these things for to get word out? It's great that we have the sandwich board in front of the hall about dog licenses, but if we had something down on Main Street, if we had something on Berlin Street as you're coming in that way, talk to DPW and police and see where the highest traffic patterns are, and just ways to get simple messages out, because we could always do a better job at that. So this was just something that sparked my thought on this. We can continue to another meeting while I look into fixing that one, but it's something I was hoping the board would consider at least.
I think it's a great idea, and I think the The existing one that belongs to SEMA seems to be more of an emergency use, whereas some of these other LED displays, they have more functionality, and I absolutely think that's a great idea. So,
Mr. Chairman, is there any COVID money around we could use?
Yeah, that's the idea, is that the American Rescue Act, I think it would, you know, and it,
So we're talking
general
about use.
short money, right,
Yeah,
so,
it won't
and if
be a
they're,
lot.
and if they're, you know, they can move them around, you know, we could use them for, God forbid, in an emergency, but also, you know, try different spots and see if, you know, up by the high school, as people are
Yeah.
coming in that way, see, you know, where people are coming in and going in town, so, if it pleases the board, I'll work with the town administrator to try and come up with some options as far as estimates and functionality, and work on seeing what the battery is, at least for the one we have, to get that fixed up.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just on a related thing, how are we doing with getting this SEMA off of your plate?
I wasn't able to schedule a meeting.
But did-
I
I thought
really
we-
did like seeing it, my name on the agenda, though, I might stick around for a little bit.
No, but I thought at the last,
Yes, we
two
did,
meetings
and I was
ago.
supposed to have a meeting, right, I haven't been able to organize something with my deputies and everything, so,
No, I don't think.
we were supposed to have a meeting with the chiefs
Yes.
and my deputies to
Yes.
to
Okay,
talk about
okay,
workload
okay.
and stuff. I wasn't able to pull that off. It's,
Okay.
trust me, that's
Okay.
very much on my list.
Yeah.
I did speak with the chiefs.
As much as I want to take credit for the signboard.
But they
Deputies.
wanted
Oh,
more
yeah.
information from SEMA as to what they do,
Yep.
who's involved, who would be involved. So the chair indicated that he would get some people from SEMA together, and we'd all meet with, and try to come up with some more, better information.
Perfect.
Thank you for keeping me
Mike.
honest on that.
Thanks, Sean.
More to come, for sure. On to personnel issues, the town administrator, as you know, we've advertised and received resumes for the human resources manager position. The town administrator, well, why don't you take this, Michael? We're, you and the superintendent, it's a joint appointment.
Right, you know, myself and Steve were talking, we have probably 53 resumes, and we're pulling out ones that we feel first round, kind of, that we want to do a review. But we're at the point now of wanting to get a committee together. I guess the superintendent had already spoken to the school committee, and they were interested in that as well. So I would just want to see if the selectmen were interested as well to participate in that. The last time there were 2 school committee, 2 selectmen, a member of the personnel board, and the town treasurer, because of the nature of payroll and personnel and benefits. Those were the 6 that were on it before. So myself and Dr. Meyer indicated, that would be kind of a preferential road to go down. If any member of the Board of Selectmen would like to participate, we'd like to get the resumes out to the members next week to start meeting to set up interviews on that. So we wanted to kind of see what interest of the selectmen might be on that, so.
Any takers?
I would be interested if nobody else is.
Works for me. I don't want to go out of order, but I depending on how the search for the assistant town
Okay.
administrator, I don't want to sign up for both, so.
Understood.
Yeah, I can sign up for the human resources.
Okay.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Yeah, so if you want 1 or 2 or
Choose.
whatever
Yeah.
is a clever.
Two, yeah.
I mean, is school committee too?
Well, they had indicated 2 people were interested, but if we only have 1
Oh.
selectman, we'll only ask for 1 school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was gonna
they
say.
did like a primary and a secondary, just in case. They're
fine.
trying to be helpful. Yeah,
all right.
that was my understanding, was they, one of them was picked, and then the other one was like an alternate in case they wanted to.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Okay,
we
I'll be
could
the
do that
alternate.
then.
No, so you'll be the primary. Right? And then I can be-
No, that was,
I signed up
We'll
for
let you
all.
guys-
they were, yes, I think they just did that because
Yeah.
they weren't sure if we were going to ask for 2 or 1, so.
Rock,
I will,
paper, scissors.
I will leave it
I
to the
was gonna
superintendent and
say-
the town administrator to figure out how big they want this.
Yeah.
But at least if we have
We
2
certainly
interested.
I was
we have
go-
2
yeah.
interested people.
Two people interested, we know
I'm
we
sure-
could go that route.
I have faith that you and Dr. Myers can take it most of the way,
Yeah, okay.
for sure.
Right, well, I
We'll be
appreciate
sending
you
you all the
guys.
resumes.
You're very capable of doing yourself.
Thank you for your willingness to help with that, as someone who's been on it before. Moving on to the assistant town administrator, I just noticed, reading the ad for a couple weeks in a row, that I think Sterling, West Boylston, Lancaster had all been using a search firm to help with their town administrator searches, and I wanted to put it out there since this was such an important position for us, and to maybe just to, yeah, since it was an important thing that deserved, I wanted to put it out there to see if the board was interested in investigating using a recruiting firm to take the place of a normal search committee, just to take us out of it. I'll open it up to what you guys think. I mean, I can give my, go ahead.
I see where you're coming from. But I don't know if, like, I don't know, I kind of feel this is, I'm almost the opposite, where I feel like this is so important that I would like want to make sure that the select board has a voice in it. So if it was something that was a little bit of both, I'd be in favor of it, if we want to use a consultant and get their opinion on something. But I think it's ultimately going to be the town administrator's decision on the
Yes.
search committee. But if it was my preference, I think I would still like the select board to be a part of that process. So what I'm saying is I would not be in favor of having this consultant like totally replace the search committee. I'd like to use it along with the search committee.
Okay?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So with the hiring of the superintendent of the public schools, there was a consultant that was used as far as advertising the position, doing the recruiting, collecting all of the resumes, and then that was passed off to the search committee. And then the search committee worked parallel with the consultant basically just provided advice and guidance along the way. But it seemed to be a pretty efficient and effective process that,
I'd be in favor of that.
All right, so they handled, and I guess we'll have to get proposals from people to see what they're willing to do, but they winnowed things down to finalists and then handed that off?
no. So they advertised the position.
Yep,
Anybody who applied, they organized everything
Yep.
for us. Then they handed that off to us. And then from there, the search committee came up with the process of whittling it down. And then the consultant basically provided guidance along the way. So if there was any questions about how other municipalities had handled it or other school departments handled it, then they just provided some feedback. And
Haven't we already advertised it? No?
Not yet.
we have not advertised.
Okay.
I mean, I imagine we can just ask this consultant to do whatever we feel comfortable with. So
Right,
maybe
right.
if it is like,
The only,
maybe separating candidates who are stronger, like kind of doing a first pass,
and
but
actually,
not
you're right, they
necessarily
did do
excluding
that.
people, but just kind of prioritizing them maybe.
you're right. They didn't weed anything out. They basically
just-
ranked them
Yeah, okay,
to a certain degree.
gotcha.
Mr. Chair, the only caveat I have about being on board with this approach, though, is that I just don't want this to be anything that would slow the search down. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want I don't want us going back and forth with a consultant for like 2 months trying to figure out what their role should be and then if we have to do that, it's not gonna be beneficial. So if we can hammer out a scope of like what we want this person to do quickly and they can agree to it and they can be part of the process, that's great, but I just want to make sure we don't sign up for something that drags the search along, that's all.
Understood. I mean, I'll speak personally. It's a small town, and we've been working on this position for a long time, the majority of my time on this board. I want to make sure that this person it's going to be a very difficult transition no matter what, because we're changing the structure of town government, by not a small degree. I want to make sure that this person comes in without any baggage, or with as small baggage as possible. And I think taking people who frankly are close to this, like we all are, back a step might be doing us more of a service going forward, in that we can say, we brought in professionals, they looked at these resumes, they gave us the best candidates based on what other towns, what's serving other towns better, and then Michael can make a decision, or we can make a decision there. I'm trying to protect this position as much as possible, because I know already, there are going to be people who have it out for this position from day one. So my interest is in bulletproofing it as much as possible to say, this person was picked for, we had this criteria, we've worked very hard on this job description, that this person was picked for this reason only, and not because of something that might serve to discredit them later.
With all due respect, I think that people are going to have an issue no matter what direction you go, depending on whether it's their candidate that gets in or not. And, if the focus becomes hiring the best qualified candidate who fits the needs of our town, then, if that process is, if it's, tried through and true, then no one should have any issues being able to answer to that. But I don't want to get over sensitive to how this has come, and hopefully we can move forward and everything's great, and we get the, Michael is able to appoint who he feels is best. And that's it.
Yeah, the only other comment from people I've spoken to outside of the town who are town administrators or assistant town administrators, like positions like this don't open up very often. If we had 53 resumes for human resources, I expect there to be a lot of resumes coming in for this position, if that's in fact the case. So I agree with both kind of sentiments, but I don't know if like I said, if it's an objective person kind of going through and saying, all right, but then we do have a say in it. But if we ever transparent about the process, then there really should not be.
That's my only concern, is I'm just afraid if we rely too much on a consultant, now we've removed ourselves from one of the most important decisions that we're probably going to be making over the next however many years. So I'm in favor of using a consultant as another data point in the search.
Yeah.
I just would be a little uncomfortable handing over the keys of the car to some outside agency, that's all.
How would you like to move forward here?
I don't know, put it on the agenda for next meeting, and in the
So-
meantime, just kind of talk about it?
Well,
Go ahead.
can we explore, maybe initialize discussion with, a consultant or whatnot, and then come back with information at the next meeting as whether or not that's something we want to move forward with or not, versus...
I just think we could do both at the same time. Like I said, I don't want the search for this consultant to slow down this search, because we got approval for this position before town meeting last year, right? That's when we finally got the approval for it. And, it's been kind of a long, bumpy road, and I just would like to stay focused on crossing the finish line, and I'm just nervous. I don't want another thing to delay us because we're waiting to talk with them and figure out what their scope of work is and what do they usually do and how could they fit into this process. I just don't want that to hold up the search. If we can do both of these in parallel, if we can do the search and at the same time quickly contact a consulting company, catch them up to speed, have them in, explain how they would, come to an agreement on how they could help the search out, I'm totally in favor of that, but I just don't want it to stall the search.
So when you just said put it on the next agenda, what was the intention of, what would your intention be of having it on the next agenda?
If I could interrupt, do we have to put this out to bid?
It probably wouldn't, it wouldn't reach that threshold. For $10,000 is the threshold. I mean, to get under $10,000, it's best business practices. Over $10,000, you need 3 quotes, and then over
25,
50, you need to go out to bid. So it wouldn't reach that threshold. So it wouldn't be anywhere near. It probably not even less than 5,000.
I believe the towns that I mentioned all use the same firm. So maybe we can reach out to them and see if they can give us a number and see,
Yeah, that's good.
if that works. That's what struck me, that they're all using the same place. I don't know if it's because they're good or because they're cheap or they're the only ones around, but maybe,
I know.
Well, if a lot of different municipalities are using them, they must have a decent track record.
Can I, can I ask what the timeline is for, like, where are we now? Is it, in, with the personnel board in terms of salary? Or is that-
The job description is all set.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, Mike, have you heard anything yet about the salary?
They're meeting Monday to
Okay.
discuss it.
Okay.
Okay, so that,
So
at
no
that
more after
meeting, the
Monday.
expectation from that meeting is that they're gonna set the pay scale for the position? Okay.
Okay. Is that what we want to do? Do we want to, we'll
Yeah,
get a
some
quote
more
from
info.
these people?
Yeah,
Okay.
my suggestion is just that we move along as we normally would, but at the same time, if we want to reach out to a consulting company and get a quote and see how they could help the search, I'm all in favor of that.
Realistically, we can't really move forward until our next meeting anyways, best case scenario, right, until the personnel board sets the scale, is that?
Yeah, I mean, right, I mean, I think, and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, I think we could technically advertise without having the pay, just say with like pay, like yet to be determined or something if we wanted to, but we don't, we can, or we can just wait till we have a salary that we can put on there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion,
Thank you.
okay? Right, that we inquire on a consultant fee as soon as possible.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor? Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thank you. Any other old and new business?
Yes, sir. So one, I was speaking to the athletic director, Mr. Smith, and we were talking about the auditorium use for the cheerleaders. So now that we're back in the chamber, would that auditorium become available to them on Wednesdays, say up until 6 or 6:30, whereas right now, I think they were going every other Wednesday.
Right. Yeah, they were trying to help accommodate the setup for the meeting, so yeah, so absolutely, there's no use planned for that. As we're talking about with the town hall use committee, right now, there's no use planned until town meeting and elections, so, yep, so that would be fine.
So I'll just relay back to Mr. Smith to reach out to you.
Yeah, and if they could refresh the days and times, that would be good to make sure that the doors are available, because I know, if they're gonna come like on Monday, because they think they were doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So if they're gonna try other days now, Monday or Friday, or they're gonna come later or earlier or whatever, that would be good to know.
Thanks.
Anything else?
And then the other thing was, as far as the Dropbox goes with the sharing of the agenda, so when we were talking about one of the items that was on there that I hadn't saw at this point, I go into the Dropbox, I just downloaded what's in there, and it's still the old agenda. So my concern is that I'm not confident in the agenda being the updated agenda based upon, I don't know why it is. I don't know why, when you upload it, how come it doesn't come across updated, so then no matter when I hit, export.
And I apologize, that was my fault. That got sent out on Friday, and the item was added to the agenda on Monday, and it was just kind of a crazy week, and I didn't even slip my mind about switching them out, so.
No, that's all right, because I didn't know if it had been updated, and I just was still getting an old
Yeah,
copy, so
no.
that, perfect.
No, so.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, we get things settled by Friday, but, we don't have to post until Monday afternoon, so if there's late-breaking things, we try and give board
Perfect.
members the flexibility to get something on, and if we have to talk about something over the weekend, we just like you people to have stuff as early as possible. So, thanks for.
Very good.
And if you see things like that, please let us know, because oftentimes it's, chair error or otherwise, so. Committee reports. We're getting a cable committee on the books. We had a conflict this week with our new members, which we're working, I'll talk to you about sorting something out, but hopefully with the off week.
Okay.
We'll meet the budget on Tuesday. Any other committee reports? Any other business?
Just one thing, it's more so just a request. I mean, I think we're hopefully on the end of COVID. So if we have board meetings, any board, if you're just meeting amongst yourselves, like there's some subcommittee meetings that I think we'll still use Zoom for out of convenience. But if you're a board that is like meeting with the community, I just would I think it's time that we can meet in person. I don't think we have to do Zoom meetings anymore, so it's, obviously you can't make anyone do that, but that's just I figure I am a subject matter expert on being paranoid about COVID, so I feel like if I'm ready, I feel like if I'm ready to get things back to normal, that's a good indicator that I think everyone probably should start to think that way. And like I said, if it's a matter of convenience and it's just board member to board member, Zoom meetings are fine, but if you're engaging with the community, I think it's time that we all come back and you can have face-to-face meetings.
Anything else? Hearing none, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we adjourn
Oh, our next meeting is,
April 6th.
thank you, John. We'll see you again on April 6th. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor? Aye. Opposed, 5-0. Thank you and good night.